Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where last night the New York Post, of all outlets, news outlets, was able to get the scoop that it seems Daniel Craig is finally amenable to the idea of returning for at least Bond 25. There has been talk about shooting Bond 25 and Bond 26 back to back. We'll probably hear the details soon, but it looks like he's willing to come back to the negotiating table. But what interests me the most about this story is how that came to happen and how it totally changed my opinion of Barbara Broccoli. Now, to give you some context, a couple of months ago, maybe even longer than that, we were talking about female producers. And one of you said, Grace, what about Barbara Broccoli? Lack of female producers. And also lack of female producers who aren't just supporting their husbands, which we even talked about this week. But anyway, someone said, well, what about Barbara Broccoli, who of course produces the Bond films? And I said, I don't really count her because, that's nepotism. She took over for her father and, is just keeping this franchise puttering along. That's pretty much all the Broccoli's do. But then with this coverage of Daniel Craig agreeing to open up discussion about returning to Bond, it was revealed that the reason he's in a good mood is because Barbara Broccoli produced an off-Broadway version of Othello for him where he's co-starred with David Oyelowo. And that scratched his dramatic itch. And now he feels more like a real actor again and is willing to make tens of millions of dollars, probably even, I think like $100 million to do 2 more Bonds, right? I'm like, I can't believe that took any convincing. But kudos to Barbara Broccoli for not only doing it, but for thinking outside the box. Being like, you want to feel more like a regular actor, Daniel? I'm going to make that happen. And I think it's important because she not only made her star happy, but she kept him from getting into any other producer's clutches. Like you might think, well, just encourage Daniel to go do something with another producer and come back to you. Well, maybe he wouldn't come back. This way, Barbara Broccoli was able to keep him in-house, keep him happy, and make all his dreams come true. It's a little bit like a villain, right? Like, oh, do you like being in a Shakespearean off-Broadway play, Daniel? Look at the great reviews you've gotten. Don't you want to maybe come back and do Bond? Don't you just love being part of the Broccoli family? It's amazing. I'm very impressed with her work. Now let's see how this new Bond turns out, because in the coverage, they talked to one of the screenwriters, Robert Wade. It's a screenwriting duo, and he said, the world's changing, and it's important to think of Bond's place in it. He said, look, Donald Trump is a real-life Bond villain, brought to life, and he's the president of the United States. And of course, I'm sure they're very tempted to get involved with Brexit. What does James Bond look like in the world of Brexit? Well, you know what? Who cares? I think that clearly the Bond franchise has been moving towards being more fun, which I think everybody's very excited about. Like, for instance, my favorite moment in Spectre was when that mouse was in the hotel room and James Bond was like, who sent you? He didn't actually want to know. He was joking around. He didn't lose his mind or anything. But it was hilarious. And if you want to have some kind of commentary in Bond, I love the class warfare element that was introduced in Casino Royale, with Bond not being posh, coming, like a rough and tumble street kind of guy who comes up and is put in this really fancy schmancy world of Bond, right? And how that kind of gives him an edge. And I thought that was fabulous. They've lost that, I feel, a little bit with the Daniel Craig Bond movies. I think they should go back to Casino Royale, still the best of the bunch, and be like, why did this work so well? And if they just think about that for, I'd say, I don't know, 20 minutes, they'd solve a lot of their problems. Although I have to say, Skyfall is very rewatchable. Very, very good stuff. It's such a beautiful movie. I don't think Sam Mendes is returning, though, so I will be curious to see what director they get and how that will have an effect for sure. But this is the other good gossipy part about the story. Why isn't it Tom Hiddleston? Well, apparently he was in the running, but he took himself out with his ridiculous Taylor Swift showmance. No, that's not. And by that I mean, usually showmance means it takes place, a romance during making like a show or a movie or a production. This was for show. I don't believe that romance for a second. I don't know what Tom Hiddleston was thinking. I think it helped Taylor Swift, kind of. It was so lame and so obviously fake. But not only did that kind of make Barbara Broccoli be like, ew, But his Golden Globe speech, that speech was so horrible. People I was watching it with, when it was, I mean, I was busy live tweeting, so I didn't quite catch it at the moment because I was like, Tom Hiddleston, snore, going to do something else. And my friend sitting next to me was like, that was horrible. And I was like, what'd he say? And everybody had that reaction. He even had to apologize for it. But apparently Barbara Broccoli was like, also, double ooh. But you might recall when he got his award for the night manager, he talked about how he ran into Doctors Without Borders and how he was really proud that they binge watched his show. It was just such a tone-deaf, selfish, egotistical comment. Tom Hiddleston's lucky that he's in the MCU, although that's been reduced as well. We'll see how he does in Thor Ragnarok. But apparently he needs a better PR manager. We'll talk about people managing your careers with the viewer question, but somebody's got to watch him more closely. All right, you're not as debonair as you think, Tom. And your PR ideas are, maybe someone is helping him, but he should get someone new then, because this is a disaster. He literally PR'd himself out of being the new Bond. I think he would have been a horrible choice anyway. So everybody wins, except for Tom Hiddleston. All right, maybe he wins with a wake-up call. All right, so the second story of the day is that it looks like the Disney theme parks are heading the way of both the Disney film slate and the Disney store, which have been taken over considerably by Star Wars and Marvel. Whenever I'm in New Jersey, I go to the Disney store. I love to visit it. And I'm always struck by how the front of the store is overrun with Marvel and Star Wars merchandise. Occasionally, they have princess stuff on one side. But, you know, they really, really are trying to lure people in, obviously, with those brands, which have done quite well for them. But, you know, let's not lose your identity here, Disney. That's something I think they need to be a little bit cautious about. But, you know, they also want to make money, and they want people to go to their theme parks. They're having a rough time, particularly in Florida, with gators and Tragic Story, and also Zika. But this is all happening in California, which seems to be in a little bit better shape. But anyway, there's a rumor going around that after Star Wars Land opens in 2019, they're opening one in Florida too, by the way, at Hollywood Studios. But after that opens in Disneyland, they're going to next aggressively build a Marvel Land in Disney's California Adventure, where of course they're already opening Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, a reskinned Tower of Terror, for Memorial Day weekend this year, May 27th. So that's just apparently the first wave. They're going to take out Bugs Land for this. I think that could go. And then also some of Hollywood Land, which is where I start to get concerned, because I'm like, whoa, you got to keep the identity of the Disney theme parks and, you know, celebrating movies and Walt's history. I mean, that's a really nice part of that park. They'll maybe bring over the Iron Man experience from Hong Kong. That would be great. And other rides, obviously. They already have meet and greets at Disneyland for Marvel characters, and they're quite popular. Just as long as they make sure they don't lose sight of their Disney properties as well. I don't think, it works very well in Florida because Hollywood Studios is going to be Star Wars, and maybe someday if that deal with Universal Islands of Adventure ever ends, they'll put the Marvel stuff there. But they still have the Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and Animal Kingdom. We're talking about Animal Kingdom in just a second. But in California, you're already putting Star Wars in Disneyland, now California Adventure. Also, you have to think about it from a business perspective. They're trying to balance the ticket sales. So they want to make sure that you want to get a 2-day ticket or a 2-park 1-day ticket instead of just saying, okay, I'm just going to go to Disneyland because that's where Star Wars is. They want that type of park goer to go, well, I have to go to California Adventure too because I want to go to Marvel Land. Well, already you're going to want to ride Mission Breakout for Guardians of the Galaxy. So Disney's very good at this. They're very savvy at it. But, I just get a little concerned about losing their own identity because the Disney store, the things that are for the Disney stuff, like Disney live action and Disney animation and Pixar, tend to skew really young. All of the Disney merchandise in the Disney store actually skews ridiculously young. Don't forget your all ages fans, Disney. I'm talking like tween and toddler, like that group. So we'll see how things are going. I'm very excited for Star Wars Land, and I would be excited for Marvel Land, but don't mess up Disney World too much in Disneyland. I'm a big Disney theme park fan, and I would hate for someday Main Street to go the way of, oh, look, it's Stark Enterprises is taking over Main Street and is refurbishing it. I'd be like, no. All right, so also, I wanted to point out that with Animal Kingdom, they're opening this World of Pandora for Avatar. And then James Cameron keeps pushing off the movies. So I would not invest in other people's franchises. You know, Disney has enough franchises of their own because you can't control them. Who knows when we're getting another Pandora movie. Sigourney Weaver swears they're about to start filming, but this is kind of getting ridiculous already. I can't believe Disney sunk that much money into a film. Like, I believe 2009 is when the last one came out, and they haven't had any since, and who knows when we're getting the next one. Over like a decade later. It's crazy. I don't even know if anyone's going to see these movies because they've kind of become a little bit of a joke. I don't know. Are you going to see Avatar 2, 3, and 4? Or I think even 5. Are you going to see all those movies? Or, I mean, I guess I'd have to see a trailer. But the first one, as I've said before, I would have walked out if I wasn't stuck in the middle of an IMAX row at the time. It was so bad. All right, so the third story of the day is that nobody's reading comic books, which I could have predicted because, as I've told you, and as I've complained quite a bit, I think the quality of comic books is going down, 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 down. They just become promotional pamphlets for the movies and TV shows. But it's starting to rear its ugly head in the press. So there are 2 headlines, actually, one from Marvel and one from DC. So Marvel really stepped in it with one of their distribution, I think, VP of sales, saying in an event with retailers, and it got out that, well, nobody's reading our comics because nobody likes diversity in women, and we miscalculated with that, and so that's why nobody's reading the comics. And it's like, what? Wow. Of course he was like, let me clarify and do damage control and spin, and it's like, I don't know how you can spin that. It's such a horrible thing to say. And then also, although I'm sure some of you will agree down below in the comments, but I have a counter. And many people had a counter because it's easy to counter. And then DC is launching this month, right now, DC Kids Superhero Month, where they're going to spotlight DC superhero girls, Justice League Action, and Teen Titans Go to try and entice younger readers to come into the fold, right? They have to replenish their readership. I would think, they still make Disney comics and they still make Archie. Those are the gateway comics into reading comics. I think that's very important to understand. But I think retailers focus considerably on adult readers, and I have my own frustrations with retailers. I think they don't do a good job. Like, a lot of the times, female and diverse books with characters don't get ordered, or they don't get good spotlights because they're not pushed by the retailers. There's not very good follow through. It's really unfortunate. My comic, and I know other people, they were under ordered because they were like, oh, no one wants to read a comic about women, and so the comic wasn't even available. So that's why another reason you're seeing a shift to digital. But then Marvel and DC should be working harder to run ads for their digital comics beyond just the Comixology portal. Why don't I see ads for comic books on the news sites, for film and TV? Why aren't they going on there being like, did you enjoy the latest Marvel or DC movie? Why don't you read this comic? I think because they know the comic sucks and they don't have any faith that anyone's going to be like, I'm glad I clicked on that and paid for it. So anyway, I think, and also it's interesting with the DC Superhero Month that they're pushing animated shows. How is that going to correlate into reading? I think that's just very frustrating. Also, while DC superhero girls are great, and I see them at Toys R Us with like Lego packages, etc. And I was just recently at a drugstore or like an arts, it was like a newsstand. It was a really cool newsstand, and they had like stickers for kids. I always like to check out and see like what's going on here. And they had DC superhero girls, and I was like, that's great. But I was upset they didn't have any Wonder Woman stickers or any like just DC female character stickers. You could get like all Batman or all Superman or all Marvel heroes with like, I didn't see any Black Widow in there. And I'm like, well, why can't I get a pack with, regular Batgirl, Wonder Woman, and etc.? Why can't I get, and Catwoman? Why can't I just get a pack of them not made for girls, right? I thought that was really weird. But a lot of people quickly came back and said that the real problem with comics these days is quality, which I agree. Too many crossovers, which I also agree. It's extremely expensive. And also, that really limits the creative things that people can do in their runs as the writers for each comic, because they're stuck having to tie into a crossover event. They're like, I don't really care what you want to do with the character. You need to get them from A to B to tie into this major event. Like, and also, I don't know what's going on with Harley Quinn, for instance. I don't know if anybody picked up the recent Harley Quinn Little Black Book with Lobo. It was like Dear Penthouse. It's like Bruce Timm wrote it. We'll be talking about Bruce Timm later today. But anyway, The other thing that people mentioned is that a lot of talent is leaving for Image and other creator-owned opportunities because, you can sell it to get your, like maybe a TV show or an animated series, and you get paid better. Although DC and Marvel pay very well to top talent. But anyway, they're losing a lot of talent. And I would say not only for creator-owned opportunities, but because their crossovers hinder the creative leeway of that talent. So you might recall a lot of headlines, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, with writers saying, I keep getting rewritten by editorial, and editorial keeps changing their mind about what they want, and it's just a mess, and my name is on crap, and it's really embarrassing. And I think that hasn't gone away. The reason you're not seeing that headline anymore is that writers who feel they have the weight to complain about that have just left, and you have a lot of newbies and people who are like, I can't afford to complain about it because I want to continue to work here. So I think that's the real problem. All right, so that's the third story of the day, and I'd be curious, for those of you who are comic book readers, what do you think of the current landscape? All right, so the viewer question comes from BTT viewer, longtime BTT viewer, Anthony Huntington. Hi, Anthony. And Anthony says, this isn't, I talked about Ghost in the Shell on Movie Math, and I said Scarlett Johansson doesn't have Twitter, she doesn't have Facebook, she doesn't have Instagram, and that, was a factor in Ghost in the Shell, I think, not having a big enough footprint, in terms of people thinking of seeing it. So Anthony says, hey Grace, question. I saw on Good Morning America the other day that another star's house got robbed because they posted on social media that they were away shooting. Given that for many stars they get work through social media promotion and are encouraged to do so, is this something the star just had to risk, or should Hollywood do a better job of educating and protecting their stars? Is the onus of the star on the star? Is the onus on the star? That means the fault, or on their agent employer? Also, are there consultants who could help with this? Great question, Anthony. First of all, I wouldn't blame them tweeting about being away on a shoot, because to be honest with you, any even slightly enterprising criminal could easily find out what the production schedules are and that you're away from home. So you just have to have a good security system, basically. I mean, you could be tweeting you're out to dinner, or someone could just look at your house and see that the lights are all off and clearly you're away. So I don't think that is a factor. But I will tell you, it's a good way to talk about, I would never share anything too personal about yourself on social media. I think that, that's like, there's a line, and it's hard to tell where the line is because, you don't want to feel like you're not actually communicating with people online. But so I think some stars overshare, right? So, but here's the thing. I think this was a really good opportunity to talk about how social media is handled in the entertainment business. So basically, almost everyone has someone tweeting for them. And I'll try and find it. I think it was in Vanity Fair. I'll put the link down below in the video description if I can find it. But it was a fascinating article about how this is done. So the short of it is, and you can get the details in the article, it's amazing. I'm going to try really hard to find it. So what happens is that somebody works for you and you plan your social media campaign. And it's usually someone who has a couple of different clients. And what they do is you guys sit down with your star, especially the people you're talking about, Anthony, of that caliber. They can afford this. So that person says, okay, what do you want to tweet about this month? And this is the holidays that are coming up, and these are the events. Let's have things ready to go. So they plan stuff, and sometimes even when they say they're on vacation, they're not on vacation. It's a lie. They've just orchestrated, okay, well, during these weeks, you'll be away on vacation, and we'll use these photos that we have from another time to put them up here. Like sometimes a photo that you see that's just been tweeted out was taken like a month ago because they plan it about a month in advance. So they have everything ready, and it's all ready to go, and that person's in charge of handling the social media. It's really fascinating. So very few people are tweeting on their own, and almost everybody has somebody tweeting for them. That's why occasionally some people will sign their tweets, I think, to make sure it was them and not their team. But some people have actually very lucrative careers running, celebrity social media accounts, and they're quite good at it. So it's a really great article, and I encourage everybody to read it, not only because it's fascinating, but also will give you a better idea of what you're interacting with online, particularly for the bigger stars. And also, you could think maybe it's a potential job opportunity for you. That could be maybe a career you're interested in pursuing. It's interesting how many different careers have popped up thanks to the digital evolution. All right, so write your thoughts down below. Thank you for your question, Anthony. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down your thoughts on the top 3 stories, Anthony's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching.